about it, and there's a lot more areas it can go. So again, I'll throw it over to you. And yeah, just to discuss the vertical model and whatever we've left out.
Okay, so yeah, things, big subjects, so it's hard to cover in just a little bit. And also in this medium as well, you're only getting like a two-dimensional view because there's not a lot of interaction to and fro, and we can't look around the thing, underneath the thing, and blah, blah, blah. We're looking at the thing. So it's like studying a statue from a photograph, isn't it? You only get one view of it, which is one of the reasons why I'm not very interested, I never have been, in making instructional DVDs and stuff. We can maybe talk about that in a little while. But just to go back to the different ways of training and the different approaches. And obviously, these are the approaches that I use, but I would encourage people to try and adopt them in a way if you want to make progress. Now, here's the difference. And to use unfortunate terms, the difference between being an operator, as in somebody who does the thing, okay, even though it is a specific term within a certain niche of the military, an operator, to borrow the term, an operator is somebody who wants to do the thing. So if you're training purely for the practical aspect of it, you want to be an operator. If you are a pro fighter or you want to compete, you're an operator. You're doing the thing. You're an end user, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Compared to a collector. Now, I'm not denigrating anybody for having a fascinating hobby. You know, why would I? To be quite honest. And I think sometimes it can be too easy to sit up on a pedestal and point fingers at people because they don't like what you like. You know. And after a while, you start to realize we're all entitled to whatever the fuck we want to do. You know, you want to collect butterflies, you crack on. How can I make fun of you for that? It's what you want to do. You know, we've all got different tastes, but you've got to make the decision that, you know, are you an operator or a collector? Now, you can be both, but you're going to struggle, to be quite honest. You're going to struggle if you want to train every single martial art in the world because you're fascinated by them. That possibly is going to have a negative impact on you actually being able to pull it out of the hat on a life gone wrong moment. Now, people might disagree with that and say, well, the more you know, though, the more options you've got. But at what point do you think there's having too much options? And I would say that, or too many options, I should say. I forget my native tongue in. But at some point, I mean, you've got to ask yourself, okay, so again, let's go back to an oft visited kind of baseline. How about a pro fighter? Why doesn't he do that then? You know, why doesn't say, you know, let's use Sean Strickland, okay, as a really bad example. All right. Although, just to clarify now, no, Sean, I don't want to fucking spar with you ever. Okay. So there you go. But just in case I don't know why he sees it. But why doesn't Sean want to train every single martial art out there to improve his chances when he goes into the octagon for his next fight?
Yeah.
Why isn't he traveling the world, studying everything from capoeira to Kalari Payet to Silat? Why isn't he? You know, because surely if it holds true that the more you know, the more things you know, then the more chance you've got of finding the key for the lock that you need. I think it's because, you know, people tend to realize that when you boil it all down, there are very common probabilities in a fight. Why not just train for those? You know, and everything else is trim.
Yeah.
That's my view anyway. And to me, again, I famously said, well, I wouldn't say it was famous, but I said controversially to some that I don't do martial arts anymore. I did.
Yeah.
You know, I had gis on and I had, you know, kung fu suits on and all kinds of stuff at one point in my life. I just don't do it anymore. To me, it's just another skill. It's the same as learning lock picking or medical skills or driving and something like that. That's my view on it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
no, I think it's to interrupt there, I think it's fair to say too that with all the research you've done, you've come up with a system that, you know, you vouch for. And that's one thing I've always been confused about. Like, particularly when I was in the Krav Maga world, I'd see these instructors, Krav Maga instructors, and then they'd be like, oh, he's me at a Muay Thai gym, he's me at a BJJ gym. And I'm thinking, why are you doing that if you've got this product? Don't you believe in your product? Like, that's what I do. Like, you know, I practice what I preach. Like, a lot of people don't.
You know, I think I think just to get just a smaller side there, I think Krav is a very unusual one there because without being, without denigrating anything, Krav doesn't really exist as an actual entity. It's just another word for combatives spoken in a
Yeah.
different fucking language, basically. So it's like when people say, "Do you think Krav Maga is good?" I'm saying, well, it's a hard question to answer because
Yes.
which version of it are you telling me about? Because
Yeah.
there are some, guys training out there who are training with a Krav t-shirt on, but really, I mean, they're putting in the work in and they're doing MMA basically, and they're doing,
Yeah.
lots of Muay Thai stuff. It's a very and what can I say? It borrows from everything to the
Yeah.
point where does it have its own identity really? Because there
Mm.
isn't one Krav syllabus for me to say, yeah, Krav is good. In the
Yeah.
same way that I could say Shotokan karate, and we could talk objectively about it because we can actually quantify it
Yeah.
to being a particular thing. What about White Cloud Kung Fu? What about, a
Yeah.
certain brand of Muay Thai?
Yeah.
Fine, we can talk about those. We can talk about the difference between, say, Greco-Roman and freestyle wrestling, because they are separate entities defined by
Yeah.
separate rule sets and things. But Krav is a very difficult one because it's such
Vague.
a
Yeah.
generic, vague term, an umbrella put over so many things. You can get guys doing it, and it's absolutely appalling. And you
Yeah.
get guys doing it, and they would kick your ass. But it's not the
Yeah.
Krav doing that. It's the guy. It's what
Yeah.
his. You tend to find that the guys who are the bigger names in Krav usually have got a very heavy background in something else.
Yeah.
And Krav is a very good marketing tool because it's very searchable on the internet. It's got a lot of press. They've done a very good job in marketing it, to be quite
Yeah.
honest, to the point where people think it is a thing. Whereas in
Yeah. Yeah.
reality, no, it's if there ever was, we don't do techniques, we do concepts. That's Krav. It's a
Yeah.
concept, that
Yeah.
manifests in all different shapes and sizes depending on who's doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's always a funny one to me when people say, "What do you think of Krav?" And it's like, how do I answer that? It's like, what do I think of car?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's such a broad term that
Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah.
it's often said that the quality of an answer is very dependent on the quality of the question. So you must get asked this quite a lot as well, and I get asked an awful lot, and I have been. What's the best thing to do in, and then mention some hugely vague, generic circumstance. I
Yeah.
expect a very specific answer.
Yeah.
It's like asking, you know, a mathematician, so what's the best thing to do in maths then?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what's the answer? It's like, what's the answer to maths? And it's like, well, can you be a little bit more
Easy.
specific there, and then we can maybe talk about
Yeah.
something because,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, what's the best thing to do in a street fight? It depends on what the street fight is. I
Yeah.
was in Sweden actually, and my host in Sweden actually he came up with something that stuck with me for a long time, and he said, "Oh, it's the ancient martial art of it dependo."
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I was using that for quite a while, and then somebody else took it over, I think, and made a million memes about it, and did what he did and took the credit for it, and then we um, destroyed him on the internet with a bit of self-realization about how much of a plagiarist he was. But that's another
I remember
story,
that.
isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. A few people remember that. But to talk about the model then, if and I work from always the presumption of operator, end user. So if that doesn't fit somebody's view of how they see themselves, great. We're not talking about the same stuff. All right. So take it for interest only. But if you are ostensibly there because you want to be practical with what you're doing, you know, you want to be able to protect yourself and things like that, or that's your main focus. You're not really interested in the culture of a thing, the spirituality of a thing, the fascinating history of a particular style. Fine. You want an end user thing? Great. Let's talk about that. We talked about then the vertical model versus our horizontal model. And these are terms I use just to kind of abstractly kind of get an idea across to somebody that with a vertical model, you're more interested in going up for performance and down for depth for technical proficiency. Yeah. With a horizontal model, you're more about collecting a wider curriculum of options. Now, those are quite abstract terms. So if we put it in the way of, say, analogy of building a house, people might be able to understand more rather than the mess that's running around inside my brain at the moment. If I can put it in simpler terms than that, building a house. I've never built a house for full transparency, but I've kind of got an idea of how it happens. All right. I've watched a lot of people do it. You first have to clear the ground. Now, that's a very non-technical part of the building process, isn't it? That's what all the laborers do. The guys like me that have worked for my mate, who's a skilled bricklayer, I'm not. So I just do all the heavy lifting. I do all the
Yeah.
setting up, the clearing up, just the manual stuff, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the easy bit, really, because you just bulldozer everything flat and you chop down stuff and uproot stuff. And, you know, you don't really need a lot of, you know, skill to do that, you know, and it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of effort and blah, blah, blah. That's the horizontal part of this. The vertical model starts when you start digging in the footings, the foundations.
Mm.
And you fill them with concrete. Concrete goes hard, and then you start building, and then that's the performance. You know, that's the
Yeah.
vertical model. The horizontal model is just let's just keep clearing the ground. You
Yeah.
know, let's not really build anything too high or dig down too low, but we can do a lot of work by clearing a lot of fucking ground, and it just gets wider and
Yeah.
wider and wider. You know, and it doesn't need a lot of skill, so there's no real depth needed for that. And you're not really focusing on building anything performance-wise. So that would be an analogy. So it's like for yourself in your own training, what are you doing? You know, where are you going? What are you trying to build? Because if you're just searching around for another way of throwing a punch, you know, how about staying with the ones you've already got and getting really good at them?
Yeah.
Because I can guarantee that other kind of way of throwing a punch is just the same as the stuff you already know, but maybe your fist goes from being like that to like that. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So there isn't an awful lot of difference between a Wing Chun straight blast and an overhand right if you know that the body works the same way. A few angles change, a few joints change their angle, but ostensibly, you know, it's still the same core movement, you know.
Yeah.
So if you're just running around because you've heard that this style punches a bit different and you want to try it out, great. You know, you're learning more stuff, but are you getting better at anything? So it's just for people just to have a look at it yourself, you know, and having, like we talked on the last one about a bit of direction, not just jumping in a taxi and shouting drive to the guy and
Yeah.
expecting to get the where you want it to be. You've got to be very specific about where do you want to go, you know, and for that you have to know the address.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can't just go, oh, I want to get good at fighting. You know, that's
Yeah.
not a direction. You know,
No.
that's fuel in the car, but it's not a direction. You know what I mean? You got to know, well, what is getting good at fighting? What do you need? So what I did with the C2 thing, with the core combatives thing, is I was just very reductionist. Because again, I was a martial arts collector in my early years. You know, I used to do anything. And again, I thought the more I learn, better it'll be. And then I kind of changed my mind a little bit as I got into my 20s. And I started really reducing what I was doing to things that I knew actually did the work, actually worked. And I
Yeah.
was lucky in a very got punched in the head a lot kind of way that I was using it end user style for real. So that was a very quick awakening as to what is probability and what is possibility, you know.
Mm.
So from there, I could really distill down. I could put a lot of stuff in the pan and turn the heat up quite high. Or, you know, my day job and my night job, that turned the heat up quite high for me.
Mm.
So you can tend to boil away a lot of stuff you don't really need. And what you're left
Yeah.
with in the bottom of the pan is a very reductionist, you know, what actually a chef calls it a reduction, doesn't he?
Mm.
Yeah. Another subject I know nothing about, but I can pretend with the best of them. But, you know, you end up this reduction of techniques and concepts. You end up with these master keys rather than a massive big bunch of keys. You end up with
Yeah. Yeah.
with a few keys that open up most of the locks rather than a million keys for a million locks, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And really, I try to make my speciality to some degree working that base for people, getting a foundation under them. My speciality is not the building of the house. My speciality is the putting in of the foundations.
Mm.
That's really what I've tried to work on. And again, I've worked on that because I feel that I've identified the biggest gap in the market for that. Why would you want to compete with
Yeah,
people who are already very well established at what they do? Any good businessman looks at what isn't covered, and that's the niche, isn't it? That's the
yeah,
demand, and you
yeah,
fill the demand with the supply.
yeah,
So find out if you're training and you want to be an operator, what is it that you need to train to start with? That's one of the big ones. What's the blueprint of this house going to look like?
mm,
And let's dig some big foundations into it. If you're missing out on that important technical aspect, you're not doing the reps, you're just jumping straight to the drills, you're never going to get as good as the guy that dug down first.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you follow that sort of model?
Yeah, pretty much. Like it's funny the way it's all sort of progressed over the years is yeah, we're the same. Doing so many different things, and we'd slowly go, oh, like I'd cut it away, and that was my whole sort of Krav Maga thing. Like I started teaching it, like I had all the MMA background, whatever. Started teaching Krav Maga, and I'm like, it's just not cutting it. Like there's just too many holes in it, and then I'd like do drills that weren't designed by Krav Maga, and I'd cut this one away, cut this away,
Yeah.
cut this, and it just in the end we were left with this tiny thing that we taken so much of the Krav Maga away that we couldn't use the term anymore. And then I started to implement a lot of things from wrestling and kickboxing and Thai and all that, which filled the voids a whole lot better. And just got to the point, yeah, like particularly when we talk about, what we were talking about earlier, um, just that blocking, the whole concept of blocking, in a
Oh yeah.
street fight, it does not happen. So even to this point now, I'm sort of considering changing my curriculum
Well,
where we did do a lot of the blocking and parrying, but
it kind of does, but it's more
yeah,
incidental than
yeah,
instrumental, isn't it? You know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean, you see it in boxing. I mean, like we talked about earlier, if anybody should be doing blocking and parrying and stuff, it should be boxers
yeah,
because he's
100%.
only got two things to worry about. He's either got that hand or that hand, so he's not going to get taken by surprise with a sneaky double leg takedown or a kick
Yeah,
So he's got two hands to look at. So he's got potentially, you would say, or technically, the best chance of pulling it off because
yeah,
he's just looking at those two hands coming at him. He's not even worried about
yeah, yeah,
elbows, really. He's looking at that big red thing on the end of that guy's hand.
yeah,
But you don't really see it. Yeah, you see parrying of jabs and things like that are of no
yeah,
consequence really, just to pat them
yeah,
down.
yeah,
You see patting down the occasional right hand, that sort of stuff. But it more comes to the more generic defensive options, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah,
Rather than Neo in the Matrix dodging individual bullets,
yeah,
you jump behind a tree. You know what I mean? You
yeah,
hide behind a big thing. Now that's the
yeah,
kind of the concept of covering when I teach it on the foundation model. Is the concept is just to put the biggest, most durable thing in between the threat and the target, and you're covered.
yeah,
And it shouldn't really be predicated by a particular arm or shape of arms or whatever, because you don't know what you were doing when the punch got thrown.
yeah, the
You
angle,
know what I mean?
yeah,
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 by
heaps of things
by
change it. Yeah,
usually by default, that punch got thrown because there wasn't an arm there already.
yeah,
So it's something I identify
yeah,
quite a lot. If your typical blocking practice, parrying practice is, with your hands up and then you
yeah,
block and you block and you block. Well, the question I would ask is, if your hands are there, why would I be throwing a punch at your head? Because your
yeah,
hands are already there.
yeah,
So people walk away from that drill thinking, "Oh, I'm so good at this blocking," and says, "Well, you would be, wouldn't you? Because your arms are 98% already where they should be to block the
yeah,
punch."
yeah, yeah,
In
yeah,
reality, I'm going to throw that punch at you when you've missed me and you're wide open. Now I'm
yeah,
going to throw a punch. So can you block from there? And that changes everything. So it's one of
yeah,
the things that, that critical thinking of looking at a drill, any drill, and going, is this doing what I think it's supposed to be doing? You
mm,
know, and then you're looking at, the classic drills. Again, that one there, my hands are up. You're swinging, I'm blocking this and I'm blocking that. Could I actually block with my arm, one arm like that, your full power, massive haymaker right punch? Would one
yeah,
arm be enough? Probably wouldn't. It'd probably
no,
collapse on me and I'd get hit in the head with my own arm, and you'd get hurt, I'd get hurt, we'd all get hurt. You know what I mean?
yeah, Yeah.
Because as you know, when we're training and we're doing that practice, after a while, we both turn the power down because it hurts so fucking much, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you throw a few of them and you start getting those forearms digging into the inside of your forearm and you're like, ow, you know? So we turn the power down. So then we mistakenly walk away thinking that's really effective.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody didn't know you were going to put your arm there, they're not going to hold back and they just plow a big one straight in. It goes straight through one arm. So hence, you see the stuff that has been in many systems for a long time. I think, Tony Blauer probably made it the biggest statement with the two arms up, that you
Yeah.
need that extra surface area and that extra structure to resist a really big, heavy shot. But
Yeah.
then the context changes there, because in the middle or in the pocket, when we're swapping punches, no one's throwing a massive shot. It's too quick, too close. But
Yeah.
in a sucker punch scenario, when I'm lining you up for a big, clinical right hand, the situation changes there, because in the sucker punch scenario, you have got the time to put two hands up and intercept it. In the pocket scenario, you don't have the time to intercept anything, so you just have to absorb what gets thrown at you.
Yeah.
Different context, yeah. Which I
Yeah.
kind
That's
of
it.
I try to reflect in the drills. But again, a good one is, isn't it? Look at any drill and ask yourself, is this drill really achieving what I think it's achieving?
Yeah.
And it's classic things like, there's a lot of training stuff. There's a lot of dogma. It's like the classic speedball. The platform with the ball hanging down, and you ask anybody what's that for, and they'll pretty much to a person tell you hand-eye coordination, and that's the way it's been sold.
Mm.
And you then show them a video of a guy doing it with his eyes closed and say, well, how can it be?
Yeah.
And also, it's hand-eye coordination, but you're not throwing real punches. You hit with
Yep.
the bottom of your fist, you hit with the back of your hand, you hit with the front of your fist. There's no punches on those things.
No.
And then you start to realize it's actually what it's probably really for is to develop shoulder stamina. It's
Yeah.
like basically upper body skipping.
Yeah.
So like my
It's
arms
good
don't get
warm.
so my arms don't get so fatigued that they end up down by my waist and I get knocked out easy. It just develops
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it's been sold wrongly. And a lot of drills that people are doing are fantastic. You know, very in vogue at the moment, hitting your own pad drill, your solo pad drill stuff.
Yeah.
As a warm up, yeah, that's been used in Muay Thai as a warm up.
Yeah.
My friend Steve Morris used to use it as a warm up. But again, somebody grabs it, starts to do a bit of mental gymnastics about it, and gives it far more credibility, in my opinion, that it should have, if you know what I
Mm.
mean. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of a cop out for the instructors as well. It's easy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to do any coaching for it. You
No.
can just it's like making personal training client go on the treadmill for 20 minutes. It's like fantastic.
Yeah.
You just stand there, do fuck all. So it's
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those drills, if you know what I mean, in a seminar. It's fun as well, and people like it because you get instant gratification. Wow, look at this. I never miss. Fantastic. My
I'm
accuracy is
hitting so
amazing.
hard.
I hit it so hard, yeah. And it's so quick. It's a little bit like the Floyd Mayweather type pad drills, where you
Yeah.
stand there with your hands and you do this, and the other guy does all the work with the pads on your fists.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Look how accurate I am now. Look
Yeah.
how hard I'm hitting. Look at the noise it's making. Listen to the noise it's making. And even when Floyd actually says, no, we don't do this for training. This is just for the press. you know,
Yeah.
People still want to get good at that. Fuck it.
Yeah.
So it kind of, as a coach, there are certain drills that will exonerate you from doing any hard work. You can just
Yeah.
clear a bit more ground, can't you? And just stand there
Yeah.
while the work's getting done.
Yeah.
I don't
Because
like those kind of drills.
holding pads, etc. It hurts. It's not fun.
Yeah, I don't like
It
those kind of
sucks.
drills. I'm like, no, it's not for me. People love it and they are quite welcome to it.
Yeah.
But the actual dynamics, yeah, if you're punching your own hand, there's so much going on there that you're not developing outwards power, you're developing inwards power on that. To explain it really badly,
Yeah.
your timing's all different, your positioning's all different, your body mechanics are way different. You can't simulate it, but it's grabbing someone's t-shirt and hitting them. It's not. There's a
No.
different dynamic going on, the push-pull dynamic going on. It's, in my opinion, I'm not positive about it at all. Other than, yeah, it might be an interesting warm-up. It's advanced clapping. That's what it is. You
Yeah.
know, to be quite honest. And the time spent on that could be spent on something much better. To be quite
Yeah.
honest. How hard
especially
is
in a
it?
class.
You will have experienced this yourself. When people are used to that pad hitting your fist, or that pad hitting their fist on standard pad work, when they're used to that happening, and all of a sudden you don't do it, and you just hold the pad still, they can't hit it. They've
Yeah,
become so conditioned that it really throws them, and
yeah,
that's a very good indication of what's going on with that solo pad as well. You're hitting your own hand so much. When that doesn't happen, and you have to produce all the power, and you're not getting any given to you by the pad,
yeah,
that's a problem now. And I experienced that quite a lot with guys who've said done a lot of training where they've had the I mean, some pad holders take it to new levels, don't they? Of how hard they hit the amount of effort they put in hitting
yeah,
punches. I'm like, I'm not going to work that hard on the pad. Fucking hell, no. You know. But I've had guys come from there who literally can't hit a static pad that wants to get hit
yeah,
because it's not helping them.
yeah,
And then if you start adding things like, well, a lot of pads don't want to get hit. A lot of people don't want to get hit, do they? So they do that horrible thing called moving, you know. But if you simulate that, if as they try to hit the pad, if you move it back a little bit, they're even worse because they don't
yeah,
have that dynamic focus on the pad. So they're good at hitting static things, but like I ask on a lot of seminars, who's ever seen someone stand still in a fight? Only two people stand still in a fight. One's called a victim, and the other's called a
yeah,
spectator.
yeah,
But if you've
yeah,
never seen that happen in any fight, why are you training that way?
yeah,
Why isn't all the stuff you're doing dynamic targeting? You know,
yeah,
why are you still stepping forward, hitting a pad, stepping back,
yeah,
stepping forward, hitting a bag, stepping back? What's that stepping back bit achieving?
yeah,
You know, so that's
yeah,
what you should look at with drills. Am I achieving what I think I'm achieving? You
yeah,
know, where am I going? What's
yeah,
the address of the thing before I jump in the taxi? Have I got the address, or am I just going to drive
yeah,
around for a while? And then get
yeah,
annoyed that I didn't get anywhere.
yeah,
So again, vertical model. If you adopt it personally or as an instructor, it works either way. Personally, all right, I want to focus on knowing as much about this thing as possible, because the more you know about something, the more you can get under the hood and change a few things and tune the thing up. The more you know
yeah,
why you're not hitting hard or you're not hitting fast or you're not quite getting that submission on. So the more technical knowledge you have, the better, because it gives you that deep foundation to build on, and then focus on the actual performance. Am I getting
yeah,
faster? Am I getting stronger? Am I getting more accurate? Am I
yeah,
going from this to this better?
yeah.
That's the
And a
vertical
lot of
model.
yeah, and a lot of those things, those drills, uh, they have training scars involved in it. Like I've seen
Huge.
it recently in my gym where I did have some bags that were sort of close. They're not close together, but you don't have access to get all the
Yeah.
way around it.
Yeah.
And people are just basically standing there. So
Yeah.
now when we're doing pad drills, you'll see them hit and I'll get them to angle off. But then they come straight back in front and it's a training scar. And I'm like, no, turn. So you turn the pad holder, get into that habit. And I've tried to sort of change the way we do bag work and space them out more so people have that access to try and get rid of it. So all those things, solo pads, whatever, the
Definitely.
training scars that they produce is sometimes
Yeah.
worse
Training
than
scars, I
the
mean,
positive effect.
people will argue against or they don't really exist. Oh, they do. I think they do. I've
Yeah,
experienced it myself. I've hit people, for real, and then paused. And I've
yeah,
thought, what the fuck am I doing? And then you have to get in and carry on, because you're just expecting
yeah,
that clean knockout or what, and it just doesn't happen sometimes. I think what can be more dangerous and insidious though, and I cover this, is you've got training scars, which is a well-known term, but then you've got training voids as well, that things that you
yeah,
don't cover. So like I already mentioned there, why aren't you training to hit moving targets? Now people
yeah,
think that, yeah, we do that. Do you? Or do you hit a static target that then moves and stops again to be hit again?
yeah,
So the demo I will usually do on that quite early on in, say, my foundation course, when we're looking at how to really use the pads properly, is you're going to anticipate if you hit somebody, they're going to go backwards.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Yeah, either it's the pure kinetic energy of your fist making that happen, or it's their psychology saying, I'm not quite fond of this. I want to go backwards, get away from it,
yeah,
But it's very often they're going to go back, you know. if you can't reacquire that focus to hit again, you know, you might only hit him once and then you're punching air.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he's got away from you, kind of thing. And you need to better track that guy and all the time because, you know, you crack me with one good shot. If you can follow up on that, you'll win. But if you let me
Yeah.
recover, you might find out that I'm better at you than fighting, and that's a bad thing to
Yeah.
find out, isn't it? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't want to find that out outside of training that someone's better than you. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of painful. So the demo I will usually do is I will, set up on a pad, guy will hit it, I'll move back, he hit it again, move back, hit it again, move back, hit it again. The second way I'll do it is I'll just roll the pad back constantly. And the change is astronomical in how much power can be transferred. And guys are caught out by that so often because they're so
Yeah.
used to hitting a static target that's moving in an artificial way. It's stop, start, stop, start, stop,
Yeah.
start. People don't work like that, do they? They roll back like they're on wheels. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So that just a tiny little change to how you're, say, doing some hitting can affect a lot of stuff. And that's a void that people don't train for it. So the
Yeah.
void would be when I ask people, have you ever seen a fight? Of course. Have you ever seen a fight where anybody stands still? Never. So everybody always moves in every fight you've ever seen. Absolutely. Okay. So who trains to hit moving targets?
Not many
And the
people.
silence is usually deafening. It's like everybody,
Yeah.
you can see people kind of going, oh, yeah. And it's such a
Yeah.
simple thing. Well,
Yeah.
usually what happens is, yeah, we cover that in sparring. Great. But couldn't we cover, why don't you cover technique in sparring as well then? Why don't you
It'll
cover
make you
power in
better.
sparring? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You cover all that before you do the sparring. So why don't we cover it before the sparring and then we're ahead, you know?
Yeah.
Why just leave it to be covered? Oh, we fixed that in sparring. It's like,
Yeah.
why
Because it's
not
funny
add?
that was one of my early experiences boxing. One of the first times, oh, not first times. I remember I was at a club and there was a boxer there hitting the bags, and I'd watch him. He looked like $1 million on the bag, but he'd never move. He'd just stand there. And they put me into spar with him, and I was shitting myself. And I just moved around a lot, and he couldn't get near me because he's used to standing in front of the bag. There's no
Yeah.
movement. There's none of that. And yeah, I walked away. That was probably one of the turning
Well,
points for me that thought I could do this.
did you ever
So
do like traditional karate, Jeff?
no.
You must have
So
done. No,
so
come on, really?
my dad was a Jeet
All
Kune Do
right.
instructor.
Oh, okay.
So anything non-classical, not
So
allowed.
without picking on karate, it's like I say, usually when I mention a particular thing, like if I mention a person or a system or whatever, I have no personal grudge against it. It's just that it does the thing that I'm trying to talk about. So I use it as a frame of reference. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, you know, if anybody thinks it's opposed like a vendetta or a witch hunt, you don't know me very well. I just don't care that much, to be
Yeah.
quite honest. I don't care enough to have a vendetta against anybody, to be
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
honest. I got my own shit to deal with. All right, anyway. So, you remember the old thing about you keep your hand loose and then just before you make contact, you tighten it up.
Yeah.
That works great when you're punching a Makawara
Yeah.
or you're punching, you're going to break a brick with Tamashawara, breaking bricks, things like that. Because the thing is completely static. You can measure it out almost. You can get the rangefinder out, get your theodolite out. You can measure, you know
Yeah.
exactly where the focus has to be. And people still fuck that up and break their wrist on punch bags and things. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So again, if you don't have that dynamic targeting ability, you're going to really suffer.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that sparring gives you that you're never going to get from punching, well, especially punching your own hand, but you're
Yeah.
never going to get it from pad work that isn't as dynamic as a person. And I
Yeah.
just think it's the simplest thing to look at what is it that I'm trying to achieve here. So you look at the end event, the fight.
Yeah.
How do people in fights move their heads? Why don't we make the pads move like people move their heads in a fight? I
Yeah.
don't. I think it's a bit of a no-brainer personally. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, I just think you're developing all these answers, but you haven't looked at the question. So
Yeah.
therefore, all the answers are going to be wrong,
Yeah.
and they might be
And that,
fantastic, but they're still going to be wrong because you haven't looked at the
yeah.
question. The question has to come first, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one of my pet peeves is when people, you're holding the pads for them and when you see them holding pads and they'll get the person's hand and go, right there, because that's where I look good. It's just, yeah.
Yeah. I
If
mean,
anyone does that in my class,
I
I'll tell
do
them.
believe that if focus pads are probably my most used tool for training, because I'm predominantly striking based. I don't use it for grappling, guys. Okay, calm down. Okay.
Yeah.
But when we're doing striking, they're my most used tool, because I just think that if you can be very intelligent on the pads and you can simulate anything, you know,
Yeah.
and that pad can in an instant go from being someone's head to someone's ear to someone's groin, then to the back of someone's head. You can move it in an instant. It can simulate anything with a bit of imagination, a bit of, logical imagination, not just fantastic. Like, what the fuck is that meant to be? Am I fighting an octopus here or something? You know what I mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you can tell a good story with the pads that way
Yeah.
for striking, I think that's the best tool for striking. Better than
Yeah.
heavy bags, better than speed balls, better than double end ball, any other thing. Just a basic focus pad is my preferred thing.
Yeah. And it's so versatile, like you were saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but if you want performance, that is, because
Yeah.
then you're coming back to what we talked about last time: the deliberate practice. What constitutes a hit and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Are you hitting the right in the middle of that pad with all your body weight? If not, why are you counting that?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if that's what the
Yeah.
drill is. Again, so
Yeah.
then again, you got to know what the drill's for. If the
Yeah.
drill's not for power and it's for picking the right tool for the right target, fine. But again, you got to know that you can't just have one drill that covers everything, because it just doesn't work that way. I
Yeah.
tried that, and you have to compromise so much on various things. What's the point? So again, drills, training. Do you know where you're going? What are you trying to
Yeah.
build? If you don't know that, you're clearing the ground. You're doing a
Yeah.
lot of work, but there's nothing's going to happen.
Nothing
You know,
substantial. Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
one of the most important parts, I think, is the foundation. So I often use um, to make that point. Imagine if you had two guys and they had a competition who can build a house the fastest. To stick with the construction theme, because it fits quite nicely.
Yeah.
Other themes fit quite nicely. Learning how to drive a car, that's quite good as well, because you can talk about the competence models. But for this, construction's good. Two guys then who can build a house the fastest. So you've got guy A, guy B. Guy A starts clearing the ground, so does guy B. So they've both got a nice flat patch of land to work on now. Guy A starts digging foundations though.
Yeah.
Guy B starts building bricks on the ground straight away. Now, initially, when you look at those two guys, Guy B is quite much further ahead with his house. It starts to look like a house. You got the outline of it, and you got, it's up to about waist height now of bricks. Whereas the first guy is still digging down. Doesn't look
Yeah.
anything like a house yet.
Yeah.
You know. Finally, digs down. The guy, Guy B's got even more bricks down now. He's got, doorways and things like that in there. Guy B he's waiting for the concrete to set in his
Yeah.
foundations. But then the problem is, one guy looks like he's far ahead, and also he hasn't had to
Yeah.
do all the shitty work. He could start doing the cool shit. Putting bricks down is cool.
Yeah.
Digging isn't. You know what I mean? Digging an ugly
Yeah.
hole in the ground is not cool. But he's going to run into problems pretty soon, because what he's doing hasn't got a foundation. It starts to collapse. So he's going to have to start repairing it, or it's going to have to be held together with chewing gum and string. Once those foundations are set, though, for the first guy, every brick he puts down there stays where it is for the rest of the time, you know,
Yeah.
and then his house will fly up because he put the
Yeah.
extra effort into the foundation. And that's the bit talking about, again, where's the supply and demand thing here? I think most people have missed out on. A big part of that as well is we've all stopped doing traditional martial arts now,
Mm.
where it used to be hammered into you, didn't it?
Yeah.
If you went to karate or judo and stuff, you just literally couldn't do anything cool until you'd done all that boring bullshit and learnt
Yeah.
all the very basic stuff. And I thought that was a good thing. It's the
Yeah.
same as in the military. If you go into an army recruiting office and say, you know what, I want to go into special forces as a sniper and be a sergeant, you're not going to get a great response from those guys in that office, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're going to say, well, we could talk about that later, but first, can you get into basic training? Can you pass basic training? There's a foundation that you got to have first.
Yeah.
But I think the modern kind of, anybody now can set themselves up as a combatives or a reality-based instructor. There's nothing really needed for it. You know,
Yeah.
I can ring up a company now to get insurance, and then voila, I'm an instructor.
Yeah. And I think that's the Krav Maga model too. It's like, I think they pride themselves on going, you can get from here to here quicker than any art. But like you're saying, the guy that does boxing and still, at this point in time, is still learning your jab, cross, hook,
Well,
where this guy's done his knife
yeah.
defense, his bloody pistol defense, and all that. People think this is better without realizing that 100%. Like this
All I'll
guy's
say
going to,
is, yeah, on your
sky's
first
the limit
lesson,
for that guy.
on your first lesson, if you're doing gun disarms with a rubber gun and knife disarms and fighting multiples on your first lesson,
Yeah.
yeah, you're not training properly. Sorry,
No.
you know,
No.
it's probably a whole load of fun, but that traditional model ain't a bad model, to be quite honest. Where
Yeah.
we talked about it before, basics. You know, it's not a word I like to use anymore, but that's important stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're working there with a foundation. So when they do start covering more advanced concepts, you've got the tools to do it with. If
Yeah.
you just skip straight to that part, you haven't done the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not, and it's not even a, well, I did it, so you have to do it. It's not even that. It's for a reason. It's not
Yeah.
just, you know, why should I have to do that if you can just jump? It's not like the offside rule where you haven't done enough work, you don't deserve that goal. No, you know, you
Yeah.
wouldn't literally get the ball up to the net if you hadn't done the work. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you're kicking an imaginary ball, aren't you? That's the thing. It's, you know, so I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think the fact that, yeah, it's been lost now because all the modern systems, well, not all of them, but a lot of them, they want to skip that part for good
Yeah.
reason. It's fucking horrible.
Yeah. 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 You got to walk before you can run.
But, you know, we're talking like this, like it's some revolutionary thing, whereas every single sport, like the Olympics are on at the moment, well, every single one of those athletes didn't just dive straight into doing the sport at a high level. They went
No.
through sacrifice, you know, and that's why we're all in awe of them on the screen.
Yeah.
You know, nobody would be in awe of me or you trying to throw a javelin, would they?
No.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's soon tuned to a different channel. But you look at those guys and you think, fuck me, you know, the things they can do. Because
Yeah.
we just didn't put the work in to get that good, you
No.
know. So that's,
No.
I
That's
think,
it.
a problem. And that falls a lot to the kind of retail attitude that we have now,
Yeah.
you know, where, you know, the customer's always right. I can pick what I want to train, and you got to provide that for me. You know, I just seen this in a movie, so can you train me like that?
Yeah.
And I think there's a big problem there that if we adopt a purely retail model because we want to keep students, clients happy,
Yeah.
then we lose the right to call ourselves educators
Yeah.
because the educational model is diametrically opposite to the retail model.
Yeah.
Diametrically. I mean, if you just look at the two words, instructor, student, well, one of them denotes somebody who knows a lot. One of them denotes somebody who doesn't yet know a lot.
Yeah.
So why is that person dictating what the person who knows a lot teaches him?
Yeah.
Because you don't know a lot. So
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, you don't know what you don't know as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Now in retail, I think it was Harry Selfridge who started a very famous, you know, department store in London, probably the first one in the world, I believe, or something like that. He coined the term "the customer is always right," and people will use that
Yeah.
to justify all kinds of nonsense.
Yeah.
And the actual term is "the customer is always right in matters of taste."
Yeah.
That's the difference. So when it comes down to what you want to do, of course you're right. But
Yeah.
when it comes down to what you need,
Yeah.
as a
Different story.
mechanic, I might really want to use a screwdriver, but if that job requires a wrench, I'm wrong. And I
Yeah.
can't say, yeah, but I'm right because I want to do, you know, the need of the job is the need of the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it comes to a fight, what you want to do is not as important as what you need to do. And that's a big
Yeah.
deal. When people
Oh,
have
yeah.
adopted a retail model where they will pander to the base, which has always been a problem then. And in
Yeah.
return, the base rewards them with gratification. You're amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems easy, like to make money. Compliments, pat people on the back, scratch their
Absolutely.
backs, they scratch yours.
Tell them
You
they're
know,
doing the best training in the world. Tell them how awesome they are. Who doesn't want to hear that? I'll be
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next
You tell
PT
them,
session. Wow, have you lost weight? Wow,
yeah.
looking
But you
great.
know what? You know, you imagine going back to one of the old-fashioned boxing gyms, though. Imagine getting those compliments from the coach straight away. I doubt it very much. You know,
Yeah.
you got to earn that. You got to
Yeah.
earn that. He's not going to give that away. You know,
Yeah.
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 If yeah. So I think that's been the downfall of a lot of this stuff, though, is um, people
Pandering to the masses. Yeah.
pandering to the masses, people skipping past the foundations because they're not
Yep.
cool. All right.
Yeah.
Nobody makes a, you know, you've done the 400 drill with me, haven't you? The deliberate practice
Yeah.
drill quite a few times, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Still
Eight,
do it.
eight,
Still do it
eight
today.
times in
Yeah.
4 days. Yeah, that's a lot to
Yeah.
do. Now, if I did a full YouTube video of that showing two guys doing the 400 drill, I can imagine what the comments would be.
Yeah.
Mostly, what the fuck is this shit? You know,
Yeah.
and because it's boring as fuck.
Yeah.
Right? And I have to stand there as well. I'm bored to fuck of you doing it. You know what I mean? I'm bored of saying, move your heel, more hip, please. Show me your back pocket. You know,
Yeah.
I'm bored of the same coaching cues for 15 minutes per person.
Yeah.
But you cannot deny the huge improvement you get after just one sitting of that drill.
Yeah.
To the point where even if I wanted to take it out of the foundation course because it takes up so much time, with all honesty, I just couldn't because it is so effective, that drill.
Yeah.
You know, and I hate it.
Yeah. For sure.
I don't hate it as much as the guys who are forced to do it, obviously, because
Yeah.
you know you're doing it and I'm drinking my coffee, watching you do it, giving you
Yeah.
advice. You know,
Yeah.
so and
Yeah.
that's not going to change. So if anybody wants to criticize me for that, then fine, crack on. Don't care. I'm not doing it. But
Yeah.
it's the time serve thing, and you do that, and you know you've got the foundation now. So when we do the fancy stuff, you've got more to work with than guys who just went straight to the fancy stuff.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And
Yeah.
people don't realize that it actually makes your fancy stuff better.
Yep.
You know, it's a necessary evil, that technical drilling, you know, the skill development. If you just jump straight to drill, like we talked last week, we talked about skills and drills, testing, and
Yep.
then repair as a cycle.
Yep.
If you just skip straight to the drills and the testing, great, you're going to have a great time. But if
Yeah.
you miss out that important skills bits, like what are you using in the drills? Because everybody thinks they can punch,
Yeah.
everybody thinks they can kick.
Yep.
Until you actually put them under a quality control kind of scenario, how well can you punch and how well can you kick? Because however well you think you can do it in the gym, take you into the alleyway when that life goes wrong scenario happens, it's going to be half as good with the
Yep.
stress and the friction
Oh,
of
yeah.
what's going on.
Yep.
So that's the importance of that. When people say, oh, that's good enough, oh, that's your opinion. What is the other guy going to think when you hit him with it? That's the
Yeah.
difference, isn't it? When everything's
That's what
moving and everything's
counts.
kind of scary, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's what counts.
the retail model, yeah, in my opinion, it's fine. You've got to make money, but if it just becomes about pandering to the base, then yeah, the bar's going to get lower and lower and lower.
Yeah.
And if it's a case of whatever they want, I'll teach.
Yep.
Well, come on, you
Yeah.
know.
And also, you got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the
Oh,
day.
that's one of the things,
And
isn't it? That's one of the
yeah.
things, you know.
Yeah.
You know how to make money in this. If that was your metric for success was how much money have you made, well, we're all doing really badly compared to people selling drugs
Yeah. That's it.
or flipping houses, you know, or any
Yeah.
other, or being a plumber, being a dentist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What you've done 20 years of training. Well, a dentist does what? 8, you know,
Yeah.
they're doing well, aren't they? So,
That's
you know,
it.
if you were, you know, if that is your metric, then fine, okay, I get it, you know, but if you're in retail, then yeah, definitely your turnover is your metric. That's what how much money we're making. That's
Yeah.
that's what retail's for. Retail's not
That's
to
it.
save the world, is it? It's to make money, you know. But
Yeah.
if you're meant to be in education, on which I class myself, my metric is what are people actually learning and retaining from what I've got, or am I
Yeah.
just entertaining them for a seminar, you know? And I
Yeah.
don't want that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and my model won't fit it anyway, because like I say, I'll tell everybody who comes to my seminars, I'll probably won't teach you anything that you didn't already think you knew. You know, there's going to be no
Yeah.
surprises in this. apart from how to maybe train it and how to think about stuff. But the techniques, they're all the same ones you've already got. You know, if you've done a bit of Krav, done a bit of MMA, done a bit of Muay Thai, done a bit of whatever, yeah, you've done the punches and the kicks and the palm strikes and the hammer fists and the chokes and the takedowns, all the same. So there's nothing new there. But the new thing might be how to train it and raising the bar to realistic levels to see how good you really are, not how good you think you are.
Yeah.
And then once you know that, you've got something to work on.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things as well, isn't it? Just, again, know what you're trying to build.
Yeah.
You know, what is, you know, who's going to live in that house?
Yeah.
So understand the problem before you start to figure out what the answers are. Don't just dive in there with a load of your favorite answers and hope it's going to be the right ones.
Yeah, that's it. And it's almost like a SMART goal, you know, specific, measurable, you know, all those
Oh,
things.
smart targets. Yeah, we like those, don't we? You know.
Yeah.